Hi there everybody, it's Dave Sinclair. In this video we're going to talk about something that's inspired by Dr. Jed Brewer, someone who I really like taking a lot of guidance from in terms of habit loops and how we can escape them by using a superpower of curiosity, and how escaping these habit loops can allow us to get away from the habitual behavior that might be keeping us trapped and step forward towards personal transformation and ultimately the life that we really want to live. So let's jump in here a little bit. Dr. Brewer talks about 3 steps or 3 different parts of a habit loop. There's the trigger, the thing that kind of gets us. And I'll go through an example of this here a little bit further down the video. There's a trigger, a habitual behavior that we almost act on autopilot. And then a habitual reward, something this behavior consistently gives us that ultimately at one point really provided a benefit. But as we keep engaging in this habit loop, the benefit becomes less and less, to the point that often these habit loops we find ourselves in start causing us suffering. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can escape this, get off the off-ramp, almost like you can think about it like National Lampoon's Vacation when Chevy Chase is kind of stuck in Paris, I think it was, or maybe it was in London, and he's driving around this kind of traffic circle and he just can't get off this traffic circle. Well, just imagine that feeling, and that's kind of what these habit loops are like we're kind of stuck in this traffic circle, we just can't get off. And what we're going to talk about here is to start moving out of this traffic circle. We're going to build awareness using compassion and curiosity, which gives us some natural off-ramps we can start moving out of. So let's go a little bit further into this. I'm just going to move my head up here. Again, if you want this, if you want to read this, just message me. I can send you the PDF copy of this, and you can easily read this stuff after. Plus, there's also a little bit more information. I put in a little bit of a summary on Dr. Judd's work. And if you want even more information, visit his website, grab a couple of his great books like Unwinding Anxiety or The Craving Mind. Fantastic books on habit loops and how we can basically escape them to start living more true to ourselves. So let's look at this a little bit more here. So we're going to use an example as we go through this to kind of explain what I mean by these off-ramps and where we get stuck. I'm going to use an example of one of my arch nemesises, me and chips and dips. Okay, I love chips and dip. It's a comfort food. I find something in it, but it's also a habit that kind of keeps me kind of stuck. It's what I really turn to when I'm feeling a little stressed out or a little overwhelmed. I turn to that chips and dip for something. So let's get a little curious about it. What is it there that I really turn to? And when we take a look at this, there's the trigger, okay? I'm feeling tired, maybe overwhelmed, and that kind of brings up an automatic, if I really get curious about it here, I also can ask myself, what discomfort is this person, place, thing triggering in me and my body? So that's the first off-ramp we can kind of take. We can take a look at what's triggering us, and rather than automatically reacting on that, we can just get really curious about it. What is this? What's this triggering in me? What am I noting? What am I maybe trying to habitually get away from? And for me, when I think about this feeling of reaching for the chips and dip, it often happens when I'm tired and overwhelmed. And that kind of ends up showing up like a clenching of my jaw or a twisting in my heart, kind of like a collapse. And if I get really curious about that and just like, what's going on? I can take the next step and I can just ask myself, can I sit? Can I breathe and be with this for a moment? Can I be with this part of me that's feeling triggered right now? And I even notice in me as I just breathe and be with this a little bit, it kind of feels like I'm expanding a bit, less closed down. So right off the bat, I'm starting to kind of naturally escape from this habit loop by just being with whatever is triggering me and just allowing myself to breathe and be with it. So that's one way we can use curiosity in these habit loops. We can just notice the trigger and choose to be with it rather than reacting to it. We can also take a look at the habitual behavior, okay? So my habitual behavior is when I'm feeling tired and overwhelmed, is at the end of the week, I grab some chips and dip and I sit down and eat them while watching TV. That's my habitual behavior. That's kind of what happens when I'm on autopilot. Well, let's bring some curiosity to that. It's like, when I notice that urge to grab those chips and dip, I can get really curious. And I can ask myself questions like, what might this behavior bring me in the short term and the long term? Okay. Short term, it might help me numb out and escape. The long term, not so much. It doesn't really help me long term. I start getting really curious. Well, what kind of benefits does this have long term? And we'll kind of get into the reward side of it to really kind of get in this further, but I can start seeing, this benefit doesn't have much more of a benefit other than numbing me out. And then I can ask myself a question, if I choose not to act this way, what could I do? Well, and I can start getting curious about that. Well, I can engage with others. Maybe I could read. I can connect better with myself. Maybe I could exercise, explore a hobby. And again, with that curiosity about, hey, if I don't act on this, what else could I do? How else could I kind of take care of myself and that part of me that's feeling tired and overwhelmed? Well, there's some other ways to do it. And that, again, kind of creates that natural expansiveness. And the last thing we can take a look at is the reward. Okay? The habitual reward, we can take a look and we can get really curious about this. Okay? And this is where it really gets powerful, this tool, is we can really take a look at the reward and we can ask ourselves, what rewards or suffering being kind of that long-term pain this might give us, do I or did I get short-term and long-term from this old behavior? And I can notice this before, I can notice it during or after the behavior. I can also take a look at this and I can really ask myself these questions after I acted out on something. Maybe I ate all the chips and dips and maybe I didn't catch myself in the moment, but I can kind of do like a post-mortem and really ask myself these questions and get curious. So when I ask myself about the chips and dips, and I even reflect on it right now, short term, maybe short term I got this little bit of a numbing out, a little pleasure and stuff like that. But midterm, it really made me kind of feel tired, brain fog, and lethargic. And long term, I really noticed it kind of makes me lose energy, lose drive, and ultimately even gain weight. And by really taking a look at the short-term and long-term rewards of this, I start falling out of love with that old behavior. I basically become disenchanted with that old behavior. And then I can get a little bit more curious. Well, what if I chose to do something else? What if I chose to exercise or something like that instead of numbing myself out with the chips? What rewards or suffering would I or could I get from long-term, short-term, from an alternate behavior? And as I really explore that, I notice, wow, you know what? That kind of might give me a sense of accomplishment, of connection, of fulfillment. And again, I kind of feel that expansiveness. So by getting really curious about these habits that we're in, the trigger moments, what's that really, what are we noticing in our body? By getting curious about the typical ways we might act and what that might bring us, as well as what some alternate behaviors might do, and what the rewards of both habitually acting on something or the rewards of something alternate, what that might bring us, we can basically start again falling out of love with our old behavior and more easily falling in love with a different behavior, which helps us to start moving towards, away from that old habit and towards a more empowering habit. I hope you found that beneficial. Again, if you're interested in this, please email me, sign up for the newsletter that I have on these different topics. I also am on LinkedIn about these different topics, so this will be posted on LinkedIn at some point too, as well as part of the Thrive Guide. And if you're looking for just someone to talk to about how you might be able to better escape the habit loops that are keeping you stuck, please reach out for a free one-to-one consultation to see if one-on-one coaching might be right for you. Here's a couple different ways you can get a hold of me. Again, if you're just looking at this, the PDF, there is a video overview of this, of course, which is what you're watching. You can visit my website or just send me an email. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.